Howdy, hi, and hello everyone. Welcome back to Noah's Nest. If you don't know what Noah's Nest is, first of all, hi, I'm Noah. I'm in the name. I'm your host. And in this show, I do a couple different things. I go over different topics over all forms of fantasy media. That could be books, movies, TV shows, and etc. I could do different audio drama things or audio-based scenarios, or I talk about different ttrpgs that I have finally read over the past years that I have been collecting. And today is another one of those days where I finally read a book, and this one is pretty fun. So this one is also created by Jonathan Hicks. If you don't know who Jonathan Hicks is, I have done another how-to play for Those Dark Places, and this is the same person that made it. So this book is pretty much roughly around the same exact thing to Those Dark Places, but with a couple different tweaks. Once again, if you don't know what Those Dark Places is, go check out the how-to play for that, because this would be a fully so much longer episode that I don't think many people want to hear me talk for an hour long, and if it's just myself. But anyway, this book is called Pressure. So this is pretty much a sequel to Those Dark Places, where you, instead of it being just a regular civilian or someone that somewhat knows what they're doing that goes into space, in this you are a SOS division, which is let me double check just to make sure. You're our Specials Operations Squad, where instead of you just being a normal person, you fully know and you were fully trained in knowing certain skills. So instead of you just becoming a regular person and just having 4 different stats, you have these 4 same stats, but you also get to choose some skills that you are proficient in, and you can choose whatever you want. So generally, there's one GM and everyone else being players. First couple of pages, it goes over some questions that you might want to have for your players, for what your character will be, if not helping you fully meld out what do you want for a character. But in this game, everyone will get a D6. But the way to succeed is by getting a 7. And you may wonder, how the fuck is that possible? Well, in this game, you will get pluses for different skills and stats. So, in this game, you have 4 different stats, which is charisma, agility, strength, and intelligence. And you will have to put a point, or pretty much, you will need to put 1 to 4 points into each skill. But you can only have 1 of each. So you have to put 1 into one of them, 2 into the other, 3 into another, and then 4 into the last one. But you get to choose whichever ones you want. With that, those are pluses that you can add to your roll, instead of it just being like, oh, I'm just pretty good at this, or I have higher health than everyone else. No, you gain additional pluses to it. So the number to beat, or to get a partial success, is a 7. If you get a 7, you succeed. It's fine. Nothing bad happens, but you don't get anything super good about it. If you get an 8, well, that's a full-on success, and you might get an additional something to it. But if you get anything lower than a 7, that is an automatic fail, and you might have to receive the consequences. So, speaking of skills, there are 5 in each set of stats. So charisma has bargain, con, leadership, perception, and streetwise. Each of them will go over different things, but pretty much it just goes over what each of them fully mean in each stat. In agility, you could have stealth, drive, pilot, ranged, and dodge. In strength, you have climb, hand-to-hand, leap, melee, and swim. And in education, you got computers, engineering, medicine, navigation, and science. So at the beginning of the game, you will get to put 1 through 4 in each different stat. But you will also gain 3 additional points to give pluses to any of these skills that you want. The max number that you can give to a stat is 6. So let's say you have a 4 in education and you want to put 2 of your points in navigation. That is the max that you can go, because 4 plus 2 is 6. You can't put 3 into navigation, because that means that you would be in a completely different game. This is meant to be fully understanding, where you know what you're doing, but also not the top of your level. Sometimes you might want to give, like your DM or GM can give you additional points to invest into skills, but you should also talk to them just to be sure. Also in this game, you have SAM units. Now, if you don't know what SAM units are, it is where you are an automated robot, but you look realistic. In this game, instead of being a normal person, you can be a robot humanoid that is always on a starship. They have different abilities from people, but also it could make it easier for yourself as well. So, SAM units are not affected by pressure. They can't use any melee or ranged weapons, but they can use their unarmed attacks to defend themselves. And if they're making a charisma or intelligence or education-based roll, they have to take an extra round to process the information before continuing. Even though there are some quote-unquote factions or cults that hate SAM units and think that they are banned and bad altogether, just talk to your DM about it, GM about it, to see what kind of story you're doing and how or if it would fit the story. Same thing goes with opposed rolls and combat. If you beat a 7 on the DM, that hits. If you're fighting off for like moving people or trying to push them off and they're doing an opposed roll, you just have to beat them. So whoever number is higher will get it. During rounds, instead of it just being one action and done, you will get to have 2 actions before the end of your turn. So you can shoot twice, you can move and punch, you can move twice, or do any other kind of combination that you choose. Pretty much whatever you would like to do. For initiative, you go off of a single dice and you add your agility to it, and who's ever higher gets to go first. Most of the time, any enemies will go after everyone, but also It just depends on how your DM wants to do this. There is a dodge skill that can be used to avoid different threats and attacks. On a failure of getting to a 7, you're trying to get an 8 to avoid all the damage, but if you fail it, you take the damage as normal. A partial success, which is a 7, you just take a single point of damage, but on a full success, you just avoid all of it and escape all harm. There are different damage caps for each weapons. So you could punch, there's knives, there's different guns, explosions, suffocations, whatever. You will still roll a d6, but the cap is depending on what you choose. So let's say it's a knife. You roll a d6 and you get a 5. Well, the damage cap is a 3 and you'll do a max of 3 instead of 5. Or let's say you have a gauze pistol and you roll a d6 and you get a 1. Well, you only get 1 because that's what you rolled. If you rolled a 3, you would get a 3. If you get a 4, you would only get a 3. And then there's sometimes different effects depending on different types of weapons. They can do fire damage and other things. There's armor and healing throughout the game that you can choose to partake in. If you have certain kind of armor and it's a massive hit, you can roll a d6, and on a 5 or a 6, the armor will actually take the damage and you will not. But as it takes damage, it'll slowly wear down. Healing, if you ever reach negative in your strength, if you ever reach -2 in your strength, you die automatically. Sorry man, sorry girl, whatever. If you are getting fucked by a robot or an entity or something, it's not gonna work. So there's a thing called pressure in this game. It's based off the fucking book as well. Same thing with Those Dark Places. So you will roll a d6 and add your pressure bonus. Your pressure bonus is your strength and education combined. So if you happen to roll a 10 or more, you passed, you shake it off, it's completely fine. If you roll exactly a 10, you're in shock. You're stunned. You can't take actions for your next turn, either like you can't move, shoot, talk, or whatever. It's just you're vulnerable for this round real quick, and you just gotta get your bearings real fast. If you roll a 9 or less, your pressure level will go up by 1, which is very bad, in my opinion. So if your pressure level goes up way too high, you will have these things called episodes. If you have constant episodes because you're getting shooken up by so many different things, so you could get different episodes from failing pressure checks, from someone dying or an entity that you've never seen before, or just some weird shit happening altogether. There's 6 different levels that you have to roll a d6 for. We do it a bit differently, where we just go down the list from 1 to 6 because it's less hard on your character when you do 1, and it's very, very bad for 6. But in this, you can roll for it or you don't have to. It does not really matter. There are longer effects for episodes. If you just keep going, it'll just wear you down more and more. And then for the next couple of pages, it talks about your earnings, how much weapons and stuff cost, to what kind of starships you can have, and how much that stuff would cost, and what each of them would do. Because in this game, you can be on Earth or on a different planet, or you can also be in a starship. And you might have to fight. It talks about different damage effects. So if you get attacked in specific places, it'll tell you first, second, and third hit, where stuff could go completely offline, or system errors, and of other such things. Talks about NPCs as well, if you want to add other NPCs to your game, from average citizens to security guards, and even soldiers or corporate officers. They come up with some automatically so that you don't have to be quickly going through 7 different pages to find whatever you need. There are also rogue AIs. So there are things called Jacobs and Sams. Pretty much the same. Sams are the same thing as Jacobs, but Jacobs are more less intelligent. They're kind of more new to things. Well, they're older tech, and Sams are more modern or high tech, where there are ways to make Jacobs and Sam units go all rogue. It just goes over a little bit of what that could do. There's different creatures that you can put into this thing. You can add in ghosts, spirits, poltergeists, aliens, and so much more. And then the rest of the book just talks about the different kinds of mankind, other corporations, and different briefings that if you need to talk to your GM about it, you can do so. Exploring space and other GM notes. And that is pretty much it for Pressure. Pretty much everything is similar to Those Dark Places, but instead of having different roles like a navigator and a security officer, or a liaison and a medic, those are all gone, and you now have skills that you gain. So I like the different twists that they do it on. Instead of everyone having to pick a different role, it is pretty much based off of skills. So that is all for this week on a how to play Pressure. Same thing. I think it's really cool. I really love Those Dark Places. So I would be very easily eagered to play Pressure as well. And that is it for Noah's Nest today. Thank you all for listening. If you like this and want to hear more, check out everything else we've done in the past. We've done Noah's Nest, all like this, different one-shots, and tavern talks as well. And who knows, maybe those will come back at some point with some new faces. But anyway, social media, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so much other shit. At Creatures and Cantrips, I'm trying to do better for the different social medias to get our name out there and much more. But thank you all. Appreciate it. You're all amazing. Last thing I'll say is see you, love you, miss you. Goodbye, guys.